Real quick. Ink, the last thing that you remember is you had a big fight with your newfound friends. Y'all saved Thomas, saved Margaret, and and another town guard. You returned and then were gifted a scroll from the librarian in town, your new best friend.
Yes.
But eventually you found your way back to the Lotus and enjoyed a night of merriment, a little bit loud for your taste at times, at the Lotus with everyone else. You watched as Eldon and Oscar drank the foul-smelling liquid. You and Ink enjoyed some nice cup of tea. Not as good as what... Onai. As what Onai and Oscar tell you about the melting pot, but it's really good. Eventually, though, you find your way back up to the room that you and Onai share. And eventually, after meditating for a little bit, you find yourself not quite asleep because you were meditating, but you feel yourself pulled. And when you open your eyes, you find yourself in the meditating halls. One of the great meditating halls of the library and temples back home. But there is something odd about where you're at. There's snow falling. You don't remember...
Recording out.
Okay. Since I'm recording things on my end, I know things are recording, so y'all might have to wait until things are done, but back to me. Okay, so, Ink, you find yourself still in the meditating stance that you were in before going to bed, but instead of being in your room, it feels like transferred to the great meditation halls and the libraries of your home. But there's snow falling, and as you look up, you realize that there is no roof above you. You see nothing but falling snow. As you move out of the temple, you realize you're not in the mountaintop village of your home. You're in a massive cavern, hundreds of feet high and boundless wide. It feels like a lifetime ago that you were once here in the temple's grounds. But at the same time, you realize that this only looks like the temple grounds. Doesn't feel like it. The air is a little bit staler. It's not fresh and crisp like you remember. But it does bring back memories of what feels like a lifetime ago. You've learned so much in such a short period of time. You met so many splendid and unique men and women. You've had a couple of tough fights. You even stayed in jail once. Right now, seeing this view of home, this taste of home, even if it isn't, does Ink have any thoughts of home? Is she homesick for her master, your fellow students, the many tabaxi kids that you used to sit with and listen to tales being told by the elders? The biggest question, though, are you happy with where you are now?
Ink feels a pang of longing for her kin. She misses her master and the clan elder who shared many stories with Ink and her tabaxi friends. Ink is happy though, because she is learning and reading books and making friends and making stories.
As you get lost in your thoughts, just looking in this area and remembering home, feeling a little bit of homesick, but at the same time, the excitement of making your own stories instead of listening to them. You're filled with joy of the prospect of sharing your tales and being the one telling the story.
Yes, Ink is writing everything down.
But like I said, as you get lost in your thoughts, you begin to move as if your feet have a mind of their own. The snow starts to pick up, as does the wind. You pull a cloak closer around you. You don't remember having a cloak before, but it seems like all of a sudden you have one now. But you pull it in close to shield your eyes from the wind. But after a time, this wind is blocked as you move forward. You pull your shawl back, and you see that you've entered a forest of what appears to be stone trees. Snow and ice begin to crackle and crunch beneath your very soft footfalls, which is odd for you because you're so used to not leaving a sound. But as you reach the edge of this forest, just taking in this this wondrous sight. You've never seen stone trees before. But as you reach the edge of this forest, you find a clearing of blue and green ice. You believe once spring has come, and once this ice has melted, that this clearing would be beautiful, peaceful even, and it'll be a great place to meditate next to. And in your head, you're emphasizing the next to, because you do not like water.
Yes, ink does not like water. You are correct.
But in the middle of this clearing, you see something different, something not of nature. Something out of place. You see a statue of 3 figures, a knight with wings outstretched behind it, grasping a sword embedded in stone. You see a short woman with long flowing hair playing what looks like a bow, but with 3 strings. She's drawing a rapier across the strings like you've seen your young elven friend do with an instrument that she calls a violin. You see a massive man standing between the two of them. They're all standing back to back, but he's brandishing a massive sword. You blink, and it's an axe. You blink again, it's a dagger. You blink, and it's a rapier. And every time you blink or look away and come back, the weapon in his left hand is different. But you also notice that he has his right hand outstretched. And you see a familiar one-finger salute that you've seen your Goliath friend make. And you're impressed because this statue has captured the look of something that most few barely get to see, the feel and look of magic. You see that from this finger is coming forth a bolt of energy of some kind. But you kind of realize that these 3 are making a kind of a imperfect circle with room for one more figure. But as you're gazing at the statue, walking around it, do you have any thoughts?
Ink wants to know, first off, is this a test? And what magic is this?
As you're lost in your thoughts again with these thoughts of, is this a test? What am I supposed to do here? I don't understand. You start walking around this statue trying to figure out what's going on. You can't get any closer because you refuse to run the risk of falling through the ice. But after making 1, 2, 3 or 4 circles around the statue, you nearly trip over someone. They were so still that you never noticed them. Before you do trip, you manage to kind of stop and back up, and before you sits a melted Baxi who is meditating. And there's an identical mat sitting across from him. And as you look at him and kind of stare, he kind of, without even opening his eyes, gestures his hand towards the mat in front of him.
I I can go sit on it and begin to meditate with this guy.
Okay. As you start positioning yourself on this mat to meditate, you start looking. And you realize that where your mat is sitting on a stone surrounded by ice, you look over at this man and you notice that the ice beneath him has been melted, and he's quite literally sitting on water.
Ink immediately gets up and moves off the mat. Wait, there's no ice under it though.
Not under him.
No, I'm under me.
You're on top of stone.
Oh, never mind. I'm good. She did freak out there for a minute, thinking that she would also get wet.
Feeling the minor freak out that you had, this tabaxi opens his eyes, and they almost seem to glow a little bit. And he speaks to you in a deep, calm voice. Ink, welcome. I'm glad you took my sign with the book to heart. Ink, before you sits the god of the Tabaxi, the physical embodiment of your temple's teaching, the first monk of Takayama.
Well, first off, wow. I'm a huge fan. Ink's gonna get up and, basically grovel in a dignified way at his feet and be like, hello.
The man, this man before you nods and motions for you motions at the mat again. Please sit.
I do so immediately.
Calm yourself.
I try to. It does not work.
So, Ink, I've been following your tale. I am quite impressed. Though, you do have a ways to go in your studies.
She nods humbly.
How have things been? I wish, even though I've watched the things you've done, please tell me from your perspective, how are things going?
Ink thinks well enough. We have not died yet, so this is good news.
Very good news indeed.
Yes, Ink is learning lots. I have made friends with a librarian. She provides me with books.
I've noticed that you spend a lot of time with books. While that is not a bad thing, you must not remember what I told you on the mountain. Do you remember the book being ripped apart and scattered to the winds?
Yes, Ink took it as a sign from you.
But do you know what that sign meant?
To go forth into the world and learn more about the world.
In a sense, yes. It was also a way to tell you there's more to life than books. It is one thing to live in the world of others. I enjoy books myself. As I watch all of my students, if you will, you are stories in of yourselves for me.
Ink might have one tiny little problem with this.
I'm not telling you to stop reading, dear.
Oh, okay, good, because Ink might have had a heart attack.
He kind of chuckles a little bit and then composes himself. Ink, like I said, there is more to life than books. I'm not telling you to abandon your studies, but I sent you into the world to make your own story. To be your own character. Find your way instead of living someone else's.
But those who read live many lives.
That is true. Why live one life when you can live thousands?
Yes.
But you've spent many years living thousands of lives already. I'm interested in seeing yours. Give me a second.
Well, like Ink has said, Ink has written a lot. Ink has journals. Ink has been supplied with the knowledge of common writing. Ink has been writing. My friends can attest. Though they know not what I write, they know I do write. And write, not write like the good things, but write as in scribbles.
He chuckles. Ink, you, out of all of the tabaxi I've sent forth in the world, your tale is the one I'm most excited about.
Ink is also excited. Oh, it's gonna be so great. I get to tell it to many people one day.
I hope you get to as well. And I see that you have the beginnings of wonderful friendships. Friends that will assist you with any trial that you may face going forward.
They are honorable and respected companions. Yes, Ink agrees.
You're gonna need those friends. We here, and when I say we, I mean myself and the gods of other faiths in this world. We are feeling rumblings, my dear. Echoes of something weird, not quite sure what. It's not coming from our plane. It is coming from yours. Something from the material plane. Your friends might have already been, well, let's say your fates are starting to intertwine with whatever event is going on. And you definitely have ways to go in your trainings as a monk. But remember not to cut off your emotion like some of your brethren. It's good to maintain a stoic way of fighting, to keep calm, keep clear. But letting out a little emotion here and there, whether it be anger, joy, will help you. It is good to maintain the calmness of a still pond, Ink. But there are times when you must unleash the fury of a raging ocean. Remember, your strength, your agility, your tenacity might be what saves your friends.
But fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
If you leave it unchecked, yes.
Ink has a very calm exterior, but on the inside, she is a raging typhoon.
Learn to harness that storm. Learn to let it overcome you.
Ink fears she may go a little overboard at times, and that could be bad.
As long as you learn from your mistakes, you will prevail. And remember, Ink, you're not alone. You have family now. And
She says nothing. She just nods and bows her head in respect. And also that's after she clapped excitedly, might I add. Because she was just super excited about this.
this figure before you, he's doing, you can even tell that this god before you is trying, you can see the strain of a smile creeping up his face. He's trying to keep it back. Because obviously he's supposed to be the embodiment of all tabaxi. The stoic persona. The calm before the storm and the storm itself. He looks at you real quick and says, Now tell me, Ink, before I leave. I've seen you have come in possession of some ancient monk writings, teachings that I set forth in this world when I was still mortal. When I was the first monk of Takayama, teaching the feral tabaxi thousands of years ago. Hold on to that scroll. It might not have power by itself, but it will show you the way one day.
Ink will do this.
Do you have any questions for me, dear, before I leave?
So many questions, but Ink will refrain.
Do you have at least one for me? It's not much that I get to talk with people.
Ink cannot sort out question to ask. They
Fair
are
enough.
all needing to be asked, but I'm not asking all of them.
Fair enough. One of these days when you can get a question or two, meditate, I will be listening. And he stands up and walks over to the statue, and as he walks past it and around it, he disappears. And you look back at the statue just still sitting on that stone meditating, and you watch as a fourth figure emerges from the depths of the ice. In its place you see a feline figure, fists clenched together in a defensive stance, completing the circle. Around her you see a swirl of water in the shape of stone right now. But in this depiction of water, you see lightning crackling through it. And as this statue comes to be, you feel a warmth. Not quite a burn, but it's not spreading from the inside. It's like it's on your skin itself. On over your heart. You look down into the waters before you, looking at your reflection, and you can make out just the faint signs of a spade forming on your chest. And in that spade, you see lines starting to form. And in the very center, you see a heart. As that happens, the stone beneath you disappears. You're falling through nothing. And you wake up. As you wake up, you're back in your meditative stance on top of your bed where you last were. You hear the faint cries of birds in the early morning hours. You look over to your roommate, Onai. She's beginning to stir, clutching at her chest. And you both look at each other and smile. And that's all.